Okay, let's dive in. Welcome, everyone, to a deep dive into a story that is, well, it's almost unbelievable in its scope and impact.
It really is. We're talking about Charles Mulli and the organization he founded, Mully Children's Family, or MCF.
Yeah, and we've looked at a lot of different material for this, interviews, his biography, info from the organization itself. Our goal here is to really try and understand how one man's incredibly difficult start in life
Unbelievably difficult.
fueled uh, this massive mission to become essentially a father to tens of thousands of abandoned kids in Kenya.
It's quite the journey. From being a street kid, then becoming a multimillionaire, and then, giving it all up. The scale of what MCF does today, after 35 years, is staggering.
We should probably start right at the beginning with his childhood.
And that beginning was, frankly, brutal. Charles Mulli, born into really deep poverty, one of 10 children, and then just abandoned by his parents by the time he was 5 or 6 years old.
Can you imagine? Just left. And that meant living on the streets for the next 12 years.
12 years. 12 years just surviving, begging for food, sometimes stealing, relying on handouts, day-to-day survival.
And even before being abandoned, the picture painted is grim. An abusive father struggling with alcoholism.
Yeah.
A home filled with fear.
So really, survival mode kicked in from a very, very young age.
But what's striking, even then, is this determination. Despite having no home, no support, he was driven not just to find food, but somehow, incredibly, to try and get some education for himself.
That drive is a key thread, isn't it? Then, around age 17, something shifts. He finds faith.
Right, a real turning point. And that faith seemed to give him the courage for this huge decision to leave the streets behind and actively seek work.
And he sets his sights on Nairobi, with absolutely nothing, no money, no connections, just pure determination. He makes this trek. Sources say maybe 43 miles, could be up to 70, 75 kilometers.
On foot.
On foot, just walking towards a completely unknown future.
That journey alone tells you something. So he gets to Nairobi. How does a kid off the street even start?
Well, against the odds, he finds a job. A starting point as a gardener, a helper at someone's home. And apparently his work ethic just stood out immediately. He worked hard.
And people noticed. He got transferred, then promoted at a company, Kakuzi Fiber Limited.
Yeah.
So this wasn't just survival anymore. This was the beginning of a ladder.
Exactly. And he started saving, which, again, given his background, is remarkable. With those savings, he takes his first entrepreneurial step. Public transport, Matatu taxis first.
Then bigger buses.
Yeah, expanded into buses. And it just seemed to take off from there. He didn't stop, got into selling tires, became the sole distributor for Total Oil products in Western Kenya. Then real estate.
So he really built something significant.
Oh, absolutely. He became a multimillionaire, had the comfortable life, nice house, multiple cars, married Esther. They had 8 biological children. I mean, he achieved incredible success, especially considering he started with literally nothing.
Okay, so he's achieved the dream, right? Made it out, built this comfortable life, totally removed from his past experiences. What happened? What was the trigger for another massive shift?
It was a specific incident in 1986. He talks about parking his car, his lovely car, he calls it. Some street kids approached him, offering to watch it for some money.
A familiar scene in many cities.
Right. And he admits he ignored them, figured they'd just misuse the money anyway.
Okay.
But when he came back later, the tires were gone.
That must have stung, but for him, it clearly meant more.
Much more. It wasn't just the cost or inconvenience. It was like looking in a mirror. It hit him hard, brought back all those memories of being that desperate kid himself. And he felt this growing conviction, almost like God was telling him he couldn't keep living this lavish life while kids like his younger self were suffering right there.
So it wasn't an overnight decision to change everything.
No, the sources mention it wasn't immediate. There was this period, maybe 3 years, of real restlessness and internal struggle. He was wrestling with this feeling, this call.
Until a specific moment.
Yes. He describes being out driving one day, feeling totally overwhelmed, distressed, kind of lost. He pulled the car over, just stopped, and prayed. Really prayed. And that's when he says he heard it, this clear instruction. Be a father to the fatherless. Feed them, clothe them, care for those kids.
Wow, and the feeling after hearing that.
He describes this immediate sense of peace, even joy washing over him once he decided, okay, I'll do it, even though he must have known what it would mean.
And what it meant was huge, because this wasn't about setting up a small charity fund. This was radical.
Absolutely radical. Charles decided to sell everything, all his businesses, his properties. He made a vow right then. He would never work for personal financial gain again.
How? How did his wife, Esther, and their kids react, going from that wealthy lifestyle to this.
Understandably, shock. The sources mention tears, confusion. It was a monumental decision that affected the whole family deeply. It required immense faith from all of them, not just Charles.
So that's the genesis of Mully Children's Family, starting in 1989. Where did they physically begin?
Right in their own home. They took in the first 3 abandoned children, raising them right alongside their own 8 kids. Imagine that adjustment.
And knowing it was just the start, did it grow quickly? Were there immediate challenges?
Oh, yes. It grew fast. Soon they had around 100 children living in different parts of their large house. And then came an unexpected hurdle. He was actually asked to leave his church.
Really? Why?
Because he was bringing in these street children who some people in the congregation saw as dirty or undesirable. Can you imagine being rejected by your faith community for doing what you felt called to do?
That must have been incredibly difficult. But he didn't stop.
No. He adapted, moved the kids out of the main house and into the backyard, built simple shelters, started a basic school right there. But, backyard isn't a long-term solution for hundreds of kids.
Right. So the search for a dedicated space began.
Exactly. They eventually found about 3 acres of land out in Ndalani near Yada, described as pretty unattractive, very dry land, not exactly prime real estate.
And moving there wasn't smooth sailing either, right? Beyond just the land quality.
No, definitely not. They faced real resistance from the local community at first. There were tribal tensions. People were suspicious about bringing in kids from different backgrounds, many from the streets of Nairobi. Fear and mistrust were big issues.
And on top of the social challenges, the land itself posed a massive problem.
Water.
Or the lack of it.
A critical, life-threatening problem. The land was just hard, parched earth. They tried drilling boreholes, sank one down over 1,100 feet, another nearly 900 feet.
Right.
Nothing. Dry holes. Imagine pouring resources, hope into that, and getting nothing.
The situation must have become desperate.
It did. Tragically so. Without a reliable, clean water source, they had to use water from a polluted river nearby. The children started getting sick with diarrhea, and devastatingly during this period, they lost 3 young boys to waterborne illness.
That's heartbreaking. This is where the story, as it's told, takes a remarkable turn regarding the water issue.
Yes, Charles was at his wit's end, praying constantly. Then one night, around midnight, he felt this strong guidance. He woke Esther up.
In the middle of the night.
Yeah. Felt led to walk out to a specific spot, with just a kerosene lamp for light. He describes feeling guided walk 100 yards this way, turn left, go 10 yards. They went to that precise spot and just started digging. By hand.
After the massive failed drilling attempts, digging by hand must have seemed almost hopeless.
You'd think so. They dug for 3 days, then hit solid rock. The kids watching were discouraged. But then one of the boys noticed something. A faint line, a fissure on the rock face.
And that was it.
That was apparently the key. They focused on that line, struck it, and at only about 22 feet deep compared to the hundreds of feet they'd drilled before clean water just gushed out. Enough for everyone. The accounts describe sheer joy and celebration.
But it didn't stop with just finding that well. They built on that initial success.
Exactly. That was the breakthrough, but they didn't rely on just that. Over time, they engineered proper water solutions, treatment plants, huge storage tanks holding hundreds of thousands of liters. And crucially, this wasn't just for MCF.
It benefited the whole area.
It became the main, sometimes only, source of clean, reliable water for the entire surrounding community. That act alone must have drastically shifted local perceptions.
You imagine it would build enormous trust.
It did. Seeing the children thriving, seeing MCF providing this essential resource, attitudes changed. People in the community started offering to sell land to MCF. That initial 3-acre plot in Ndalani grew into the main campus of 225 acres today, plus other land acquired nearby for things like their college.
And the vision kept expanding beyond just Ndalani.
Absolutely. MCF established other centers across Kenya, Turkana, Kilifi, Lodwar, Mombasa, Kitale, addressing different needs in different regions. And they even expanded into Tanzania, in Mwanza, and Dar es Salaam.
The scale we're talking about now over 35 years. It's mind-boggling.
It truly is. The numbers are huge. Sources consistently talk about tens of thousands of children rescued over the decades. One figure mentions over 27,000 graduates who've gone through the entire program, and right now they're actively caring for thousands more. The number cited is often around 6,800 currently in the program.
To go from being that abandoned boy himself to being called daddy by literally tens of thousands.
Yeah.
It's profound.
And that naming Daddy Mully and Mummy Esther, that really gets to the heart of it. It's not just an institution, it's designed to feel like a family. Providing that sense of belonging is maybe the most crucial thing for these kids.
So what does that care look like day to day? What's MCF's approach to raising all these children?
It's described as incredibly holistic. They aim to cover basically every need a child has to not just survive, but actually thrive and break free from the cycle of poverty they came from.
Education has to be a cornerstone of that.
Absolutely fundamental. They have full school systems on their campuses, kindergarten right through high school. And it doesn't stop there. They actively support graduates going on to higher education, paying tuition for, I think the figures over 100 students annually in colleges and universities. And the quality is high. MCF schools often rank top in their regions academically.
But university isn't the path for everyone. What about practical skills?
Crucial. They have strong vocational training programs. Young people learn trades like construction, tailoring, cosmetology, auto mechanics, and importantly, modern, sustainable farming techniques.
That seems smart, the farming skills.
Very. And they use those skills internally, too. For example, the youth trained in construction help build new facilities, which significantly reduces costs.
That makes sense. And healthcare, with that many children, plus staff.
It's a major component. They run a health clinic, a dispensary, on-site for primary care, but they're also undertaking a huge project, building a full-scale Level 5 hospital in Yada.
Level 5 is significant.
Yes, it's a major hospital, and importantly, it's designed to serve not just MCF, but the entire surrounding community for miles around, an area severely lacking in accessible health care.
So the impact ripples outwards constantly.
Constantly. They provide the basics, food, shelter, clothing for the thousands of kids under their direct care. But their farming operations are vast. They grow huge amounts of food for the children, but they also run it as a social enterprise, exporting produce like French beans, cabbages, tomatoes, mainly to Europe. That generates income. They also raise tens of thousands of chickens for eggs and meat, again, feeding the family and generating revenue.
And you mentioned their role in the local community beyond water and healthcare.
Yeah, in the Indalani area, MCF is a huge presence. They're the largest single employer. They provide the clean water. They're becoming the main healthcare provider. Plus, they step up in crises, distributing emergency food aid during major droughts, helping thousands, and providing shelter and support during periods of unrest, like post-election violence.
There's also mention of a massive environmental project, the tree planting.
Yes. It's incredible. They have planted over 25 million trees. This isn't just symbolic. Sources say this huge reforestation effort has actually measurably improved the local microclimate, increasing rainfall in what was a very arid region. They've also built dams for water harvesting. It's all connected, environmental sustainability supporting human well-being.
It sounds like it's not all just about survival and work either. The kids seem to be achieving in other areas too.
Definitely. Sports are a big deal. They have a soccer team competing in Kenya's Super League. Their baseball team has won national championships. And get this, their karate team has been the national champions for 16 years straight.
16 years, that's dominance.
It really is. And these aren't just games. Success in sports can open doors to scholarships and further opportunities for these kids.
Let's talk about an individual story. Mercy's journey seems to capture the potential MCF unlocks.
Mercy's story is powerful. She came to MCF as an infant, I believe, after her mother died in childbirth. From a background of extreme poverty, MCF raised her, educated her right through primary and secondary school.
And supported her further.
Yes, they paid her university tuition. She studied chemistry at the University of Nairobi. Then she went on to medical school. And she became the very first female physician from her entire home region.
The first female doctor from her whole area. That's incredible.
Absolutely groundbreaking. And she didn't stop. She got a master's degree. Yeah. And now she's an oncology fellow at the Mayo Clinic in the United States.
Wow. From orphaned infant in rural Kenya to the Mayo Clinic.
It perfectly illustrates the transformative power of that holistic support, education, stability, belief. It shows the potential that was always there, just needing opportunity.
So let's circle back to Charles Mulli himself. He gave up everything. What keeps driving him day after day, year after year?
Consistently, the sources point back to his deep Christian faith. That initial calling he felt to serve the poor, the abandoned children, as a mandate from God that seems to be the bedrock, it fuels everything.
And practically, how does he live, having vowed not to work for personal gain?
He takes no salary from MCF. He and Esther live simply, supported by donations designated for their personal needs. According to MCF materials, all other funds go directly into the mission, caring for the children, running the farms, the schools, the healthcare.
What's his ultimate vision? What does he hope for these children, for the future of MCF?
It's about breaking the cycle completely, not just rescuing kids from poverty, but empowering them to become leaders, change makers. He wants to see them become doctors, teachers, engineers, pastors, entrepreneurs, productive, dignified citizens who will transform Kenya and Africa. He wants them to pay it forward.
Is there talk of even further expansion, like higher education on site?
Yes, apparently a long-held dream is to establish a university as part of MCF, offering that next level of opportunity right within the family structure.
An operation this huge obviously needs significant ongoing support. Where does it come from?
It relies heavily on donations from individuals, churches, and various groups. They have strong international partnerships, especially in Canada, where support has been substantial for about 15 years, and also significant support from the U.S. for around 10 years.
And they're thinking about the long-term financial health, too.
Yes, they actively promote planned giving, encouraging supporters to include MCF in their wills or retirement plans. They call it the Legacy Society. It's about ensuring the mission can continue sustainably for generations to come.
It really sounds like Charles Mulli sees these children not just as people to be saved, but as the actual key to the future.
Precisely. He's often quoted saying things like, "Saving these children is vital because they are tomorrow's leaders." His greatest joy, by all accounts, is just witnessing their transformation, seeing a child move from utter despair to hope, realizing their potential.
So, reflecting on this whole story, it's an incredible trajectory, from abandonment and street life to building immense wealth, and then consciously dismantling that wealth to build this enormous family and multifaceted support system.
It covers so much: overcoming adversity, profound sacrifice, building a complex organization that delivers education, healthcare, skills, environmental change, and crucially, a sense of belonging, all on a massive scale. It's changed countless lives, and even the landscape itself.
Thinking about Charles Mulli's path, particularly that moment of decision and the radical commitment that followed, driven by his faith, what does it suggest about the potential for deep transformation when someone confronts their own past pain, not with bitterness, but with purpose, when they dedicate everything they have to meeting the needs of others? What kind of possibilities does that sort of selflessness unlock?